All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am James Oliver Jr., managing partner of Kabila Ventures, a new VC firm coming soon. CEO of Kabila, which connects overlooked founders to capital, customers, and co-founders. Husband to an amazing wife and co-founder of the world's cutest twins. If you disagree with me on that point, I will fight you. So look, tell us where you're coming in from in the comments. Please share this on your social media channel to invite your friends to join this. What's going to be a really fun and inspiring conversation today. Um, Also, as we get into this, please drop your questions in the comments and we will do our best to get to all of them. This is going to be a 30-minute chat and it's going to go by super, super fast because we have a really dynamic, compelling, interesting guest today. So what am I excited about right now? Right now, I'm excited that we've given away mental therapy grants for 20 founders via my Kabila Founder Mental Health Fund, which is a nonprofit. Each week, we pay for therapy for founders in our Kabila community, plus our port co-founders once we launch the fund. And now to Techstars founders via my partnership with Techstars and the Techstars Foundation. Super, super, super excited about that. So look, recently, I devoured a book by Sharon Gillenwater called Scaling with Soul, How I Built and Sold a $25 million tech company Without Being an Asshole. I got to picture that. Hang on a second. I'm over here ham and egging and doing all the damn things. Where's that picture? Overlay. This is what happens when you're doing too many things. There we go, right there. Scaling with Soul. Great book. I listened to the audio book because my ADHD does not allow me to read. But it's available on Amazon. You can get it on listen to it on Spotify, an audiobook. But this is a great book. I found myself breaking my neck, like nodding in agreement with Sharon as she was reading and asking questions. And then she's coming back right a few minutes later, addressing these questions and leaning into the questions and my answers in the book and stuff. It was just really, really cool. So I'm going to read from Amazon what it says about the book. It says, "In Scaling with Soul, a swashbuckling memoir of resilience on the journey to becoming the CEO of Boardroom Insiders, Gillenwater traces her path from waitress to marketer to bootstrapping founder of an industry-leading software company, all despite false starts, sexism, and an imploded first startup. In the process, she shares crucial lessons about how ambitious founders can learn to cultivate resilience without losing their souls." Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you, James. Good to be here.
Yeah, so good to have you. So we got some folks coming in from Kenya. Kimani, what's going on, Kimani? Locked in from Kenya. What's up? What's up? What's up? Good to see you from Kenya. Who else is coming in? Drop in the comments. Let us know where you're coming in from. This is going to be awesome. So Sharon, let's get into it because I have a lot of questions and I know people are going to have a lot of questions. And I know you're going to start riffing. It's going to lead to a bunch of other questions I haven't even considered. So I'm excited to talk to you. So just off the top, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, after selling my company, I was just kind of hanging out and I didn't really realize what a big deal it was. I mean, of course, it was a big deal for me, but I didn't realize that in the grand scheme of entrepreneurship, what, building and selling a $25 million tech company with no venture capital, that it was such a big deal. And entrepreneurs, particularly female entrepreneurs, started finding me. And so I would have these conversations and I thought, well, I don't know if I can provide any useful information, but the reaction was stunning. Like more people kept coming out of the woodwork and saying that the information I was providing was very helpful. So that's why I decided to tell the story. I had a personal friend who's a writer and he was really encouraging me to write a book. And I said, nobody wants to hear this. And he said, I think they do because your stories are dramatic, funny, and inspiring. And so he actually helped me write the first draft of the book.
So good. So Jesse's in the house. So Jesse is how we connected. I think we were DMing and she mentioned that she was doing an event with you or something and that she thought I should meet you. And so she made the LinkedIn connection. Jesse's a member of my Kabila community. She also has publicly mentioned that she's a recipient of our Founder Mental Health grants and just gone publicly and posted a video because we're really trying to destigmatize these conversations around founder mental health. So I'm super thankful to have connected with Jesse and I'm thankful that she connected us. So we got Dorota coming in. Dorota, where you coming in from? Let us know. Hey, Dorota, welcome, welcome, welcome. So speaking of the book, you mentioned here, see, I told you this was going to happen. This was not even one of my questions. You mentioned that you did this without any VC money, but your previous startup, you did raise VC money. And when you were explaining the terms in that previous startup, I was going, oh no, the fact that these people have majority control in this business, this is going to be a problem. Can you tell everybody what happened there, please?
Yeah, that was a big problem. It killed the company. So back in the day, back in 2000, there were these incubators. It was very popular to have an incubator that takes a majority share in your company, provides you with capital, and then they take over the things that entrepreneurs typically don't want to do or are not good at. So the finance, the legal, the HR, the accounting. And so we thought that sounded like a pretty good deal. Yes, I was concerned about giving up a majority share, but these were, my company was a content company. It was an email newsletter company. And these were all content people. They were all ex-Disney people. So I thought this is going to be great. But what happened, and this is important for entrepreneurs to realize, you have to understand that there could be external shocks, external factors completely beyond your control that could really affect your chances of success. And so what happened in our case is the NASDAQ crashed big time. And so the leadership of this company, the CEO was fired. They brought in a new CEO who only wanted to invest in biotech companies. And so that was not good news for us. And they wanted out of the arrangement. And I always say, if they want out, they will find a way, whether they will fire the CEO, they will, sue you for something bogus, which they did in our case. And when that happens, you can't fight their lawyers because you don't have the money to do that. And you end up shutting down. So it killed the company. And looking back as a more experienced entrepreneur, I know that I could have bootstrapped that company and probably sold it at some point and extracted some value out of it. And so it was a big lesson learned.
Yeah, that was a really one of my favorite stories in the book. So Dorada's coming in from Florida. Welcome, Dorada. And Dorota, hopefully I pronounced that correctly. And Delroy's here in Atlanta. What's going on, Delroy in Atlanta? Welcome, welcome, welcome. So can you talk about, because I feel like you talked about this a lot in the book, and I thought it was really fascinating because people always talk about, if you're going to raise money, it has to be scalable. You got to, initially you got to do things that don't scale, right? But eventually, if you want to scale up, because you were really focused on that so much in the book, and everybody was like, oh, this is not going to scale. This is not going to scale. But can you talk about the challenges of a business model that didn't scale and how that ended up being an advantage for you?
Yeah, it actually was not that big of a problem. And you know who never expressed concerns about scalability? My customers. They didn't care about scale. I mean, they cared about being able to get the records that they wanted when they wanted them. And so we set up a very unusual kind of engagement model, where they could access all of our records. And if we didn't have a record that they wanted, they could request it and receive it in 2 days as completely as part of their annual license.
I think we need to go back a little bit because I don't think people know what the company did. We just jumped right into it. I apologize. Can you tell them what it did? And that might make more sense what you said.
Boardroom Insiders was and is, it's still in business. It's a SaaS company, a software as a service company that serves mainly marketers in big tech, but I think they've expanded the industries they serve now. And, in big tech, as deals got bigger and bigger and bigger, the CEOs, the CFOs wanted to approve these deals. And to approve those deals, they'd say, well, what are we getting out of this? What is this software deployment, this new IT system? What is it going to do for our business? So it forced big tech salespeople to go in and have conversations in the C-suite. And they were terrified. They didn't know how to have conversations in the C-suite, because when you're in the C-suite, you're not talking about your own product and how great it is. You're talking to the customer about what it's going to do for their business. And so you have to go in knowing those people, you have to know something about them, and you have to know their business initiatives and challenges. And that's a lot of research. So we created a database of Fortune 500 C-suite executives so that our customers could take the fear out of their C-suite meetings.
Yeah, and it wasn't just a database. I mean, you couldn't just find the information on Google. It was very, very customized, and you had to do a ton of research to get it done. And the quote unquote unscalable part was the fact that you had to hire a bunch of people to do customized research. It's not like somebody can just press a button, just order whatever they wanted. This was customized research, right?
Yeah, it was customized research, and you have to have a tremendous amount of business acumen to do this research. And so those are the types of folks that I hired. And there was a lot of dot connecting, and it requires business acumen to do that. So for example, if you're looking for a profile of a certain chief marketing officer, but that person has never given an interview, they've never spoken publicly about their initiatives, my team would read the earnings call transcript for that company and see what the CEO said about their marketing strategy or their marketing budget. And then you can connect the dots by pulling that info into the CMO's profile. So that's the kind of work that they were doing. And
Yeah.
that's why our profiles were so much better for sales call prep than just looking at a LinkedIn profile, because they're not
Right.
going to have that on their profile.
So you said that your customers didn't care. Of course, they didn't care, but potential investors did care, right?
Yeah,
Because you can't
cared
just
a lot.
easily replicate that.
Yeah.
So you were getting a lot of pushback when you were raising money, but that ended up being an advantage for you. Like how did that end up being an advantage for you?
Well, nobody wanted to do what we were doing because they wouldn't be able to get funding. And that often getting funding is the thing that people think they absolutely have to do. And, I am a big fan of whatever the conventional wisdom is, whatever everyone else is doing, I do the opposite. I've done that many times and it always works out for me. And I saw someone said, do the unscalable. And that's what we did. I mean, we weren't thinking of that as a strategy, but that's essentially what we did. And I think when you do the unscalable, you do something that can provide a ton of value to people and that they're willing to pay for. Um, and you kind of own the market. Like we really were a market leader in this
Mm-hmm.
space relatively quickly because nobody else wanted to do it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. I loved how that ended up flipping itself on its head, and I love what you just said because, yeah, I'm a natural contrarian like you, and when everyone else is zigging, I'm zagging. Just because y'all zigging, I don't even want to do that. I want to do the other thing over here. So you talked a little bit about in the book, and I really love this story. Just before I get into this question, everybody out there, if you could just let us know where you're coming in from in the comments, please share this on your platforms. We're talking to Sharon Gillenwater about how she scaled and sold a $25 million business without being an asshole. And her book is an amazing book, which is called the same thing here. Check it out on Amazon or listen to it on Spotify. If you're like me with ADHD and you can't read books, you got to go listen to the books. And she's narrating the book, so you get to hear her soothing voice there as well. And drop any questions you have here. We have her for another 15 minutes or so. We want to do our best to get to any questions that you might have. So you talked about how you got your first check from an angel investor. And that really made me smile when you were telling that story. So can you talk about how you got your first angel check and what did that do for your confidence?
Yeah. So I had a personal friend who, was just a working schmo like me for years and years and, doing entrepreneurial things. And he hit it big. He sold a company for millions of dollars. And so all of a sudden he had all this money. And I was talking to him one day about my business idea. And I was already providing this as a service to customers, but I didn't have a database of profiles yet. I was just doing them bespoke. And this was probably like 2007, I told him, I said, I am getting $1,000 per profile from Sun Microsystems, and I've done 200 of them. I made $200,000 doing these. And he said, well, put them in a database. And I said, well, I want to, but I can't afford to build a database. And back then, building a database was probably 5 times as much as it would cost now. So I said, I don't have the money to build a database. And he said, I'll write you a check for $125,000 right now. It was like a less than a 5-minute conversation. So that was a lesson that, it's not about sending pitch decks and cold emails. It's about connecting with people in your network. And we did take on an additional 2 angels, just small $25,000 checks each, plus Michael put a little bit more um, in 2011, because we realized that we weren't able to say what was in our database. We didn't have a box around it. And my partner said, Sharon, I can't sell this if I can't tell people what's in it. You can't just say, oh, we have some CIOs and we have some CEOs. So we set out to build a Fortune 500 top 5 C-level people. And we needed some money to do that. So we took on 2 more angels who were people in my business partners network. So we never really went out to try to raise money from strangers. It was all people who trusted us and were in our networks. And it makes it um, so much of a better experience because, first of all, I know these people personally. There's no way I'm losing their money. I'm just not going to lose their money. I would,
Well, at
you
least not on purpose.
well, I would lie awake at night going like, I am not going to lose this money. I'm going to make this work. So
Oh my
as
God.
a founder, you're more determined to make it work and stick it out through tough times. And then the investors, these were all seasoned entrepreneurs themselves. And so they offered tremendous advice along the way and were cheering us on, but also just kind of left us alone because they know that
Yeah.
that's what you need. You don't need to be constantly checked in with about like what's going on with my money.
Yeah. Yeah. So Michael, as you mentioned, who gave you that first 125K, he ended up being like a super valuable. He was like super well connected, super resourced, and he was a tremendous resource for us. He wasn't just an early angel investor. He was also super smart money, right?
Oh yeah, he is a serial entrepreneur. He's now built and sold multiple companies, and he's a public company CEO now. He was doing his IPO when I was selling my company, like within the same like little 2-3
Yeah.
week time period. And he was right there, despite the fact that he was preparing for IPO. He loves the deal, He was calling me saying, "What's going on?" And so I would tell him, and he would say, "What about this?" And I'd say, "Well, I mean, the best example is he said, do you have your employment agreement yet?" This was like in the last few days of the deal. And I said, "Well,
Mhm.
no." And he said, "Then you're not closing." He said, "Either
Yeah.
you're not closing or they don't want you," which turned out to be the case,
Yeah.
or they don't know what they're doing. He said, "Because an employment agreement is going to take at least a week to hash out. So you are not either not closing or they don't want you." And he said, "Call your lawyer right now." And it was like 8 o'clock at night. And so I did. And so the next day, our lawyer kind of forced the issue with the buyer who had been hemming and hawing about what they wanted to do with me and my partner.
Yeah.
And it forced the issue. And we learned the next day that they had no intention of bringing us along. So, yeah, Michael also pushed me on the price because I was not happy with the offer that we got. It wasn't going to be enough money. I mean, I'm 60 years old now. It wasn't going to be enough money for me to not have to go out and get a job, that original offer, and live the
Right.
kind of life I wanted. So he said, and they offered like 17 to 20, which was really weird, like a
Right.
offer a range. And like, oh, I'll take the 17. No.
No. Yeah.
So um, I talked to Michael and he said, "Well, what do you want?" I said, "I want 30." And he's like, "Go get it." And he gave me the confidence. Like, he didn't say, "Well, if you ask for 30% more, like they're probably going to walk." He's like, go for it." So I did. And even my banker was hemming and hawing about that. And so I wrote up a letter and I said, to justify why I felt that we could get a higher price. And I sent it to the banker because I could tell he wasn't really bought in. And so I said,
Mhm.
"I need you to say this exact thing to the buyer." And so
Yeah.
then they came back with 25 and we took it because my
Well, that was
partner
your minimum. You wanted 30, but 25 you knew was your minimum.
that we were going to walk
Mm.
away if it was under 25. My partner and I
Yeah.
agreed. And so we got 25. And here's the thing, it was all cash. I didn't even realize at the time how great it is to get all cash.
Versus
But
like
Michael had
stock.
told me, Michael told me, he said, "Listen, this is really good because it's all cash. So, you might get a lower valuation, but it's all cash. So it's
Versus stock, which you have to try to liquidate and all that. I mean, like tie ups and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's awesome. But I love that you had somebody like that in your corner who was pushing you and wasn't just letting you settle for the okey doke and gave you the confidence to go do it. Like that's so. Look, I feel out there listening to this as a founder. Like, hopefully, you're inspired by this. Like, this is amazing. Like, Sharon's incredible. I mean, she's an investor now. She's taking the time out to have these conversations. She's helping founders all the time. So what things did you do that you think were anti-asshole on your journey to selling the company for $25 million?
we were not into the whole grind culture, like everybody was gone from the office by 5. Nobody was working on the weekends. I mean, we did have one editor who worked pretty hard, but she was juggling kids. And so sometimes she worked on the nights and weekends. I always worked because I just was so excited about everything. Like I just couldn't turn it off. I loved what I was doing. But, everybody had normal hours. Everybody took their vacations. And um, we also focused a lot on developing our people. When you are bootstrapping, you can't compete with the big guys on salaries and benefits and things like that, although we offered pretty decent benefits. But you have to develop talent as opposed to recruit talent. And that actually works out better because, people think when they have a little startup, they've got to get someone
Mhm.
who's, ex Meta or something. No, you don't want that because those people are used to tons of resources and,
Mhm.
everyone being deferential. Um,
Mhm.
and you need a Swiss Army knife early on. And we got several Swiss Army knives early on. And then we just really leaned into developing and training and mentoring our people. And we did a very good job because now people who even were entry level right out of college in the new company that was acquired, they are leaders in that company. So we developed homegrown leaders, and we were able to retain them, which is great for your business.
So the other thing that you did that I thought was really cool is you were consistently, you can tell I read the book, right? You were consistently delighting and surprising your employees. Can you talk a little bit about what that was about? I mean, those are my words. You didn't say that specifically, but I think you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that we did a couple times, well, first of all, we would, if we had a good quarter, we'd give, some surprise bonuses and raises. Like we gave consistent bonuses and raises. Fortunately, um, the whole time we were running the company, it was doing very well. So, we never had to manage it through a downturn. And when you have a growing startup, what happens is you get to points where you need a new function that you haven't had before. So suddenly you need a recruiter in-house, or you need a product manager in-house that you never had before. And so we got to that point, and we had people, we would look across our team and see who has a natural aptitude for this function, who's interested in it, and could that be a way to give them an opportunity to grow with the company and grow into a new role that pays better and is more interesting to them? Because the team that created the content, that was kind of like a grind, like to do that job for year in, year out. Some people get burned out. So we had one guy who really was into our product. Like he was an editor, but he just kept finding bugs in the product, and that wasn't his job, but he just was curious about it. So I asked him if he would move into a part-time product management role to try it out for 6 months. And if it worked, he would move into full-time product management role. He had never done product management. I gave him a budget for professional development so he could take product management classes and
Mhm.
things. And he did it. And, he got 2 big salary increases in a year. And now he went and became a product manager at PayPal.
What
So
was this story in the book? I don't remember this story.
yeah, that was it. And then there was the HR woman. I
I
did.
remember the HR woman. I don't
Yeah.
remember the product manager person, but that's so great.
Yeah.
So
And so
yeah,
the I did the same with a woman who was very interested in HR. She ran our intern program one summer, volunteered to do it, did an amazing job,
yeah,
completely created from scratch a bunch of onboarding materials for the interns that she then turned into general onboarding materials, all on her own, initiative. And so I did the same with her. She became our in-house recruiter part-time for 6 months. And then after that 6 months, the company was sold, and now she's head of HR for the brand. So,
amazing.
it's just so satisfying too
Yeah,
to surprise people with that. I mean, I guess it could go wrong where it's like, what are you talking about? I don't want to do that. But both of them were delighted. And I knew that I had hit a home run when I could see that they were scared.
that's
They
so
were
good.
like, they were surprised, they were delighted, but they were scared. And for me, I know when I know I'm doing something exciting and big when I'm scared.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
not
so good.
terrified, but a little scared.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally understand. So what are three key lessons you want readers to get away to take away from the book? And I'll just flash the book here again that people can get on Amazon or listen to it on Spotify as well. Three key takeaways from the book.
Well, I think I could say some platitude like believe in yourself, but I would rather turn that into when you have naysayers, because you will, look at who they are and what their interest is. because I had a lot of naysayers. And if I had listened to them, I probably wouldn't have done what I had done. But you know who was never a naysayer? A customer.
Your customers.
So, I had naysayers in my family. I had naysayers who were friends, partners, um, people in the industry who say this isn't going to scale, venture capitalists. But the customers were always cheering me on, and my immediate family was always cheering me on. So I think if you have those two things, your partner in life, your business partner, and your customers, keep going. Don't Who cares what they say in venture capital? They don't know anyway. That they really don't understand this kind of a business, because there's a whole spectrum of entrepreneurship, and this will be the second
Yeah.
lesson. There's a whole spectrum of entrepreneurship, and 99% of entrepreneurs do not raise venture capital. So why is that all we hear about? Why do we only hear about people on the billionaire area of the spectrum? There are a whole bunch of people like me at the 1 to 10 million ARR annual revenue companies, and you can sell and make a life-changing amount of money. So listen to those people, and those will be your fellow travelers, and they tend to be people running great businesses who treat their
Yeah.
employees well.
Well, as I like to say, haters gonna hate and ain'ters gonna ain't. So don't listen to those people. But you just made a comment there. It reminded me, I saw a post you put on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago about when founders are trying to figure out if they should keep going.
Mhm.
And you referenced something you just said there. Can you speak? Because we have like 3 minutes left. Just real quick, if you could address that. You know what I'm talking about, yes?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember exactly what I said.
It
Well,
was, if you have these people in your corner, keep going is basically what
yeah,
the post said, I think.
if you're I mean, I would think it would be really hard to do what I did if my husband weren't supportive. My husband loved doing everything for our kids. He just loved it. Driving them around to all their activities. So he did everything for our family and was supportive. So you need that. If you don't have that in your family, that might be a problem. Your customers, you absolutely need. You absolutely need them on your side. And you can ignore everybody else. And then, I even had friends who weren't into it and wondering what I'm doing. But guess what? When I sold my company and I did my book launch party, they were all right there,
Oh
like
yeah,
taking
exactly.
notes,
Probably
wait
some of them asking you for money too, I bet.
a
But you made an important point there, because I always say that, if oh damn, I forgot because I was listening to what you just said. I apologize. But if you don't have a supportive spouse or partner, either the marriage will fail, the business will fail, or both, the relationship will fail too. So super, super, super important. So Jesse says that product market fit matters. Naysayers are everywhere, but they're not doing the work. They aren't talking to your customers, potential customers. Amen.
Yeah.
CW's like, hate is going to hate, ain't is going to hate. 1,000%. That's what they do. All right. So last two questions for you. So you're an angel investor and an LP now, or you have been in the past an LP. I don't know if you're still doing that, but what's your approach to angel investing these days?
It's a relationship-based approach. I said that I would never be an angel investor because I don't trust my financial acumen. I don't trust myself to read financial models and make the correct conclusions as to their viability. But I do believe in people, and I believe people figure it out who are determined. And so I've made one angel investment in the last couple months after saying I would never do it. And it was because of the founder. This founder built a relationship with me. And the more I heard, it was exactly what happened with Michael. He's just talking to me and he says, I'll write you a check. And so the more I talked to her, the more I got excited about her business. And I finally eventually said, hey, I'd like to invest if you'll have me. And that's how it
Amazing.
unfolded.
Yeah, I know. I love that. So people could get in touch with you, because we're running out of time here, on your Substack. They can find you on Substack at Scaling with Soul, right? And you also do office hours where you address various topics with founders. Super, super helpful. They can find you on TikTok at Sharon K. Gillenwater as well. So let's see. Somebody says here. So here's a quote. What is this? I don't know if we're going to have time. But don't you have to figure out a way to have investors understand what you're doing and why they need to invest? How did you do that? Just to happen organically.
It happens organically. You just talk about what you're doing with your business and, what kind of customer traction you have, how you're going to make money, how you're going to, scale a little bit. I don't believe you have to scale massively. just be a human and talk entrepreneur to entrepreneur. And that's how I closed the deal with Michael and how
Yeah.
Universal Walker closed the deal with me.
Yeah, no, I love that. And so if we're talking about two different types of investors, I suspect that Beverly, I think was the name, was talking about more like VCs. Well,
Mhm.
you don't necessarily have that kind of time to do that with a VC, but if you're talking to an angel, so I like, and I think you're alluding to this, and we're going to hop. I like when you work with angels who are founders or were founders, because those people, they move with three things. They move with speed, empathy, and conviction.
Mhm.
Right. And one little hack that I used in the past, if you watch these things, I say it all the time. If you know somebody's an angel, like you're working on your deck, ask them to help you craft your deck, because that allows you to do something really, really important. That allows you to expedite or hack the trust building process. Right. They see you do what you say you're going to do. You execute. They see you can take feedback, if you can take feedback, because if you can't, they probably don't want to write you a check. But these are like a little tips. So these are tips. So I go to gritt.io. I used to use that. You can find founders who are investors in various categories. Reach out to them, establish relationships. But like Sharon said, like, be a human, man. Don't be an asshole.
Right.
All right, so we're at time. Do you have to hop here, Sharon? Do you have a second when I close this out to close out?
Yeah,
After
I have a second. Yeah.
Okay, so everybody, this was Sharon. I'm sorry we got to hop here, but Sharon's amazing. Check out her book, Scaling with Soul. Really, really delightful read. I listened to it. You can connect with her on TikTok, Sharon K. Gillenwater, her Substack, Scaling with Soul. If you follow her Substack, you can find out when she has office hours. She's addressing things. You can ask her questions. She's a remarkable human. I recommend you engage with her and be human, man. Just be normal. You know, just ask for help, make comments, be thoughtful, give more than you take. Right. This is what I'm talking about. So that's it for now, everybody. We're finna to wrap up, and stand by Sharon for the green room. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you. See you next time. Later.